What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network for an update on decks that are gaining popularity and also seeing some new success in the battle style standard format in Pokemon TCG online tournaments held on play.limitlesstcg.com. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, be sure to check out PotownStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes, and be sure to use code Celio for 5% off. And also make sure you subscribe to this channel for daily Pokemon TCG content. So, like I said, today we'll be taking a look at a few different archetypes that are either becoming more successful, becoming more popular, or a combination of the two. Let's start off with a deck from the Sunday Open this past Sunday, April 11th, which is Mewtwo, Eggrow, Rillaboom. Now, this is not a new deck, and really none of these decks are brand new decks. These are not the first time we've seen these decks, but in this particular metagame in middle of April, with battle styles released, these decks are making new waves. So Mewtwo tag team with Rowlet Executor tag team, as well as Rillaboom, and then a bunch of techs here. A very unique list, I think, for Mewtwo, Eggrow, Rillaboom. This placed in top 8, 7th place in Sunday Open this past weekend. And this Mewtwo variant, as well as other Mewtwo variants, have been doing fairly well. Mewtwo gets a slight buff from battle styles just because Urshifu is weak to Psychic, and Urshifu is a very strong card. And Urshifu has been one of the most popular decks in recent online tournaments, so having a Psychic Weak VMAX Pokemon being very popular and successful in the metagame is a positive thing for all Mewtwo and Mew tag team variants. And this one has historically had a good matchup versus Pikarom, and I believe a good matchup versus ADPZ. It also has the Pheromosa Buzzwole tag team as a really nice tech against single prize decks, because Pheromosa Buzzwole can take an extra prize card with Beast Game GX when it knocks something out with its 50 damage, and 50 damage will knock out Bunnelbees, it'll knock out Spiritombs, things like that. So that's a really nice inclusion as well. I'm a fan of that. The Dragonite can take really big knockouts for 270 damage, and Incineroar GX has a great GX attack as well for anything that's hitting Mewtwo and not taking a knockout. And then any deck that gives Mewtwo a problem, you have Eggrow as an attacker. That could be your main attacker against anything that gives Mewtwo an issue. It plays 2 Chaotic Swells, so you can get around Power Plant, and it also plays Malolana, so if your opponent's plan is to ping Mewtwo with a Zigzagoon and then put down Mimikyu so that you cannot use your ability, the Shadow Box Mimikyu, of course, you can still get out of that by healing with Malolana. So you aren't just immediately countered, you do have some counterplay to that. So this is a really cool deck. We'll have to see if it sticks around. I think a reason why it would not stick around is if we see an influx of fire decks again, but even so, this can handle fire decks since Mewtwo is one of the two main one of the two main attackers. So you can just use Mewtwo against the fire matchups. Next, we are going to take a look at Mad Party. So Mad Party actually won the 500+ player Limitless Online Series Major number 3. Let's see how popular it was as well for this tournament. It was the 4th most popular with only a meta share of 6%, but still a nice chunk of people playing Mad Party. Now, Mad Party is not a new deck, but this also gained new viability from Urshifu coming out in battle styles, because Urshifu is a Psychic Weak VMAX, so Polteageist can knock it out for an easy 3 prizes. You can also knock out Urshifu V for an easy 2 prizes in the early game. That being said, it's also just generally good because it's a single prize deck that does a lot of damage, and our current metagame is mostly either tag team GXs or VMAXs, so a lot of 3 prize Pokemon that are not trading favorably with this deck. ADP Zacian's one of the only tag team slash VMAX decks that can trade favorably with Mad Party just because of Alter Creation. Another one is Dragapult, since Dragapult has spread damage, so it can take multiple knockouts some turns. But other than those outliers, this is typically favorable versus most tag team and VMAX decks, and it is the best single prize focused deck we have in the game right now. So I definitely would expect to see Mad Party around and expect to see it doing well right now. It does have some inconsistencies of being a single prize deck. It has to set up different attackers every turn. It's weak to Stamp, it's weaker to Marnie, it's weaker to Power Plant because it wants to use the Denny's. But it is very strong. It was able to win a massive online tournament with many good players in it. And one of those reasons being it's really good against Urshifu, and it's also very good against Mewtwo. And there's several Mewtwo decks around right now, and we're going to look at another Mewtwo deck next. We'll be looking at Psychic Mewtwo here. So Psychic Mewtwo, this is a weird one. I thought this had a little bit of potential going into Players Cup 3. Didn't put too much time into it, though. I like this deck. I thought it was not playable without the Rotom to accelerate energy, because this is the only way you're attaching energy is manual attachments or using a Star Search with Jirachi GX, which is just not a good tempo play against most matchups. So the thing is, this suffers against Crushing Hammers. If your opponent flips Crushing Hammerheads, you don't have any way to make up for that, really, and that is the deck's biggest weakness, in my opinion. You have Stealthy Hood to counter Mimikyu, you have Chaotic Swell to counter Power Plant. So you're covered there. The biggest thing is really out of your control, which kind of sucks. It's that if your opponent flips heads on Crushing Hammer, or even multiple heads on Crushing Hammer, you're just behind on those energy attachments, and there's nothing you can do, really. But the focus of this deck is to go first, attach, and then turn to Horror House GX to make your opponent draw up their cards, and then either from there you Poltergeist if you think they have enough trainers in hand, or you Marnie into Night Watch to put them down to a 2-card hand while also dealing damage to them. The problem is if you go second and Horror House, you can't Night Watch on the following turn. So if you go second in Horror House, you have to typically follow it up with either a Poltergeist or a Star Search. Every now and again you could follow it up with a linear attack from Tina Chomp to set up some damage. But at least in my playing of the game, from you want a Horror House into Night Watch, and then just Marnie into Night Watch, and then Night Watch from there if you get your opponent into a dead hand, and then just sweep through all of their Pokemon while they are not really doing much because you destroyed their hand with the Horror House into Marnie into Night Watch. It's a pretty sinister deck. And I do like it because it can really shut out most decks, even like Eternatus VMAX, which typically should be an unfavorable matchup for Mewtwo decks on paper. This deck can handle it because you could just go Horror House into Marnie Night Watch. You don't have a big enough hand to do anything. Even if they establish an Eternatus with 2 energy, Marnie into Night Watch can leave them with not enough Pokemon on the bench to even one-shot a Mewtwo. So I really do like this deck. I think its viability and its popularity kind of relies on how popular Crushing Hammers are. And right now, Crushing Hammers are in Pikarom, they're in Eternatus, they're popping up in some other decks, but it's really just Pikarom and Eternatus. And if we go back to look at the metagame share of the Limitless Major, which was a huge tournament, it was 9% Eternatus and 5% Pika. So I'd say the majority of decks right now do not have Crushing Hammers in them. So it's as good a time as any for Mewtwo, as well as having good typing against Urshifu. So I really do like this deck. I enjoy that it plays differently than other decks. You're not really planning for one-shots every turn. You're not just trying to start applying damage on turn 1 and turn 2, but you are applying pressure with the Horror House into Marnie Night Watch. So I like the novelty of this Mewtwo deck. And lastly, we are going to look at Luke Metal Zacian. So now, Luke Metal Zacian is not a new deck, just like all these others. It's not a new deck. It's also not seeing a crazy amount of success, but I wanted to add it in here as the honorable mention at the end of a deck that's on the rise, or possibly even not on the rise, but a deck that's surprising, because I wasn't really rating this deck too highly going into these next couple weeks of battle styles. But of course, I was open to expect changes in the battle styles meta, since there's a lot of new cards being added, new decks being played, old decks that will resurface. And Luke Metal Zacian has been getting a slew of tournament results. A lot of it's being played a fair amount, and it's definitely not gone by any means. It is a deck in the metagame right now, so I did want to add it in here as an honorable mention at the end of this. So Luke Metal Zacian, if you need any of the lists, they can all be found on play.limitlesstcg.com, the only place you should be playing online tournaments outside of the Players Cup tournaments. And by the way, for Players Cup, for preparation and meta calling, be sure to stay tuned to this channel, because Players Cup 4 qualifiers start in like 2 weeks. It's not very far away. We don't have a lot of time to prepare for that. If you want some extra preparation, be sure to check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Celios Network. That link is in the description down below. It's $3 a month, and you have access to all my deck lists, my articles, and messaging about deck lists and things like that. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily Pokemon TCG content, and check out PotonStore.com for all of your PTCGO needs. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Celios Network.